Hi guys, I'm back with another video. For anyone that's new, my name's Manvitha Indukuri, and I have my email address written up there, so if you have any questions throughout this video or based from my other videos, just feel free to contact me at that email ID. So a little background about myself. I am a recent graduate of Lipscomb University. I majored in biology and I have my Bachelor's of Science degree from there. So kind of jumping into today's video, I feel my other videos were oriented towards college readiness and what to do. I think I talked about a career option as being a physician, but I really wanted to kind of give you an insight about how a typical college level course looks like, just to kind of prep yourself for the future and kind of alternate your study techniques and plans likewise. So I'm going to be talking about biochemistry today, so it's going to be like a really broad overview about what biochemistry is, or what we learn in college about the different aspects of it, and kind of give you a little overview of all the big topics you'll be dealing with in almost every biochemistry class. I know my board does look a little empty. That's because I wanted to kind of recreate the experience of having to take notes. This is probably how much you'll see on a professor's slides or the board when you get into college, and everything else is really based off of how well you take notes. So I was kind of hoping to kind of recreate that process. I will be going into a lot more detail about certain topics listed on here, so just make sure to pause the video and rewind if necessary, and take the necessary notes as possible, because this will really help you kind of gauge how you'll be able to take notes in college and kind of go from there. So biochemistry is really talking about the different metabolisms, processes, or different proteins and amino acids, and regulation and feedback in the body. These really define how and why our body processes are built a certain way, and they kind of really lay the foundation for understanding so many other kind of processes, be it in biology or chemistry or organic chemistry. And I think that's why biochemistry is taught towards the end. So there are like prerequisites for you to take. You have to take general chemistry, you have to take organic chemistry, and make sure you know the foundations, because biochemistry really combines all your disciplines. It combines everything that you learned in college thus far to kind of understand how the human body works. So that's like the basic overview of what biochemistry is. So now jumping into the most fundamental unit of biochemistry, which is amino acids, or I should say which are amino acids. Just like the cell is the basic functional unit of life, just like you learn that in biology class over and over and over again. And in biochemistry, you'll learn that everything that you do, everything that your body does, everything that metabolism is really, really dependent on amino acids. Because what amino acids do is that they make proteins, and these proteins can go on and really perform their function of making sure certain reactions go a certain way, making sure your transcription and translation happens, if you're talking about the central dogma of biology. It makes sure that you're built the right way. You don't have phenylketonuria, or you don't have albinism, or you don't have some kind of defect that is classified as medically abnormal. So amino acids really determine how your body functions, or what your phenotypes are, basically kind of that on those lines. So amino acids, what are they? Amino acids are just a carbon backbone with various functional groups attached to them. So kind of giving you an overview, there are 20 amino acids, and I'm going to name them, so make sure you write them down if you're interested in knowing them. They are alanine, arginine, asparagine, aspartic acid, cysteine, glutamic acid, glutamine, histidine, glycine, isoleucine, leucine, lysine, methionine, phenylalanine, proline, serine, threonine, tryptophan, tyrosine, and valine. So these are the 20 amino acids that you'll be learning about in college. I'm not going to say that, I am going to say that these are not the only 20 amino acids, but these are the 20 amino acids that really are important to the human body. I think they're covered in most, and these kind of really dictate most of the proteins and how they're kind of built. So those are the names, and when it comes to classification, different books classify amino acids differently, but most books classify them under the titles of hydrophobic, meaning water-fearing, hydrophilic, meaning water-loving, acidic, meaning acidic, and then basic, meaning they have a basic side, which I'll get into, or neutral. So the overall kind of structure of an amino acid, I kind of drew the backbone up there. So you have a carbon in the center, and then you have a carboxylic acid group, which is the COOH group. We'll learn that that is a carboxylic acid group. And then you have R group, which is basically, actually I'm going to jump that, and I'm going to get back into it in a second. You have the NH2 group, which is an amine, and then you have an H group. So the R group is, what really makes an amino acid different from all the other ones. So what I mean by that is the backbone, the carboxylic acid group, the NH2, and the hydrogen, they're common to all the 20 amino acids. The R group is what differs in all these amino acids. Some of them have another H down there, in case of glycine. Some of them have a CH3. Some of them have a CH2, CH3. So that really determines the overall properties of the amino acid, whether it's hydrophobic, whether it's non-reactive, whether it's reactive in acidic conditions, whether it's reactive in basic conditions. That's what really determines the reactivity of the amino acids. So when I'm talking about amino acids, there's another important note for you guys to make sure you understand, which is chiral and achiral. Chiral is basically you classifying whether a certain carbon has 4 different groups attached to it. It doesn't matter what those groups are, it has to be 4 different groups. So in this case up here, you see that the carbon is attached to a carboxylic acid group, an amine group, a hydrogen, and an R group. As long as that R group is not another carboxylic acid or an H2 or an H, it'll be considered a chiral carbon. If it is another COOH, an NH2, or an H, then you'll see that the one carbon is attached to the 2 of the same groups. So in that case, it would be considered achiral. There is one really special amino acid that comes under that achiral classification, and it's glycine. So glycine has an H in place of an R. So it would be C bonded to a COOH, bonded to an H, bonded to another H, and then an NH2. So this would be considered achiral. When you're learning amino acids, each of the 20 amino acids that I talked about have a 3-letter abbreviation and a single letter representation, I guess you could call it. And most of your professors will make you memorize those, so make sure you kind of understand why, kind of make techniques to remember those. So I kind of, most of the time it's just the first 3 letters that are shortened down to make the 3-letter abbreviation, but some of them are really weird in that they were kind of founded a little later, and then they wanted to use it, but then there was already another amino acid named after that exact same abbreviation. So next we go on to proteins. What are proteins? Proteins are the final product of amino acids. So these amino acids, they come together through a dehydration reaction, which is just the fancy way of saying you have one amino acid reacting with another, and then you have the loss of water, and they come together and they form a bond. And then so the amino acids keep doing that, and they end up forming proteins. And of course, protein formation does go through a lot of steps. You have your primary structure, you have your secondary structure, you have your tertiary structure, and you have your quaternary structure. So your primary structure is basically just the alignment of amino acids. It's just how they line up. Do they line up with A, B, and C, or do they line up with C, B, and A, or do they line up with B, A, C? It's really just how your amino acids are lined up. Your secondary structure for proteins is when when the amino acids, the backbones of the amino acids, so like the NH2 and the COOH, they start interacting with each other. And that's your secondary structure. It's not neighboring amino acids. I mean, it's not farther away amino acids. It's just reactions between amino acids it's like next to each other. Then you have your tertiary structure, which is amino acids reacting with other amino acids that are kind of distantly located, and these are more stronger reactions. You'll have your ionic interactions, which is basically a strong bond interaction. You'll have your electrostatic interactions, which is basically the negative side of the COOH interact with the positive NH2. So you have a lot of strong interactions going on. The tertiary structure is present in all amino acids, so all proteins. So all proteins have your primary, secondary, and tertiary structure. But very, very few proteins have, or I'm not going to say very, very few, that's going to make it sound like it's really rare, but a few proteins do have a quaternary structure, which is basically just interactions between multiple chains of amino acids, multiple subunits. And that's just that you make multiple groups, and that really determines how a protein functions. One really, really important factor to take away is kind of the understanding what proteins do and what their function is. Proteins play a very, very, very crucial role in the body. They determine almost everything in the body, and if they don't function well, that'll probably lead to some sort of medical abnormality. So it's really important that you know the structure of the proteins, you know how they form, because the structure really determines function. If the amino acids are lined in a wrong way, then the function is going to be wrong, and it's going to be some kind of abnormality rising. So that's proteins right there. They really determine how healthy you are, how your body function goes by, and everything like that. The last thing I'm going to talk about is metabolism. I'm not going to give a ton of explanation on this, just because metabolism is a whole half the semester when you're taking it in college, so it's going to be really hard for me to break it down into like a 2 or 3 minute video. So what I'm going to do is, in future videos, I'm going to talk about each one of these processes. So I'm just going to give you like a little background of what metabolism is. So metabolism is how your body breaks down the food, the resources, and everything that you provided, so that your body can give you the energy to do things. The most famous metabolism process that I feel like all high schoolers should know of by now, hopefully, is glycolysis, which is basically the breakdown of carbs and sugar, or more specifically glucose. And that really determines how your energy is given to you. So you have glycolysis leading into the Krebs cycle in the presence of oxygen, and the Krebs cycle leading into the electron transport chain, which gives you ATP, which is your body's energy form. So that really, determines how you get your energy from everywhere, I guess you could say, from the resources that you give it. There are so many different processes that I will be talking about in the future videos. It's really fascinating to see how your body has backups for backups for backups, just in case some process is not working, or you don't have some sort of resources. So that's really interesting to see that kind of, the importance of kind of understanding where you get your energy from, I guess. And then the feedback and regulation. There's so many switches in your body that are turned on and off based off of the amount of energy that you need, based off of what other pathways are being organized in the body. So it's really, really cool to understand how your body really functions without even you thinking about it. So like I said, in future videos I will be talking a little bit more about the different processes, and I hope this video kind of gives you an idea of what college level classes will be like, and I really hope my future videos will be of help too.